CODS Talk. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for our national and international CODS Talk for the Captivate zones that we support. Today's issues and topics is going to be global health and equality and inclusion. And I have looked at the videos and the PowerPoints, the information that's going to be shared today, and it's great, informative, wonderful things. So thank you for joining us on today, December 17th, and we'll go ahead and just jump right in. Please know that this is recorded and this will be available later. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Right here. All righty. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm kind of going backwards now. There we go. Just because we had the issues with my video earlier today, so I wasn't able to do this ahead of time. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit first about virtual etiquette. We'd like you to make sure that you keep your device on mute. Also, if you close your applications, that might actually help you have a better performance and a better program today. Please use the chat function. If you'd like to use that, please feel free to do that. We will also stop and allow for questions for each of the charities as we move forward. If you're joining by phone, please make sure that if you get a call and you have to take that, please disconnect your call and then rejoin us later. As I mentioned, we have 4 great charities today joining us. The topics that we're going to hear from today is global health and equality and inclusion. So the groups that we're having talking is Global Impact, and Sandy will be sharing information about her organization as well as her federation members. We also have Project Seawolf, Michael. So he's joining us actually in the car today for his work. So thank you, Michael. We also have EarthShare and also Catholic Near East Welfare Association joining us today. That will be Chris and also Sarah. So thank you so much for coming. We're going to start it off with Sandy Wilder with Global Impact. Something that you may want to consider doing as well is to share, move rather than the gallery experience. If you're having the Zoom call, you may want to go to presenter view. That might actually help your experience a little bit more. Sandy? Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here today. And may I first say thank you to those of you who are federal employees for all the good work you do to keep the country running, especially right here at the busy holiday season. You keep the country going and you contribute to the CFC. You folks are wonderful. And having said that, let me tell you that the instructions that I received must have been a little off. My apologies. I understood that the topics today were environmental protection and mental wellness. So my specific examples relate to that, but I suppose in a larger context, they also relate to global health and equality and inclusion. So I'm Sandy Wilder with Global Impact, which is one of the federations in the CFC. And on the next slide, you'll see what it is that Global Impact is all about. We help donors grow their global philanthropy, their caring for the world. We've been part of the CFC for the full 60 years, and happy anniversary, CFC, for the full 60 years that this giving opportunity has been available. Global Impact is a federation of 100, well, more than 100 different charities based in the United States, working internationally, and 66 of them are giving opportunities in the CFC this year. They're at work all around the world, some in specific regions, but basically all around the world. The next slide shows the general areas in which our charities work. There are 11 different areas of focus. If you can compress all of the international work our charities do to topics, these are the topics, all of them critical and all of them being well addressed by our charities. So
wait, Sandy, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you really quick? I so apologize. You are correct. It is environmental protection and mental wellness. You're good to go. It was my mistake. So you're good. Sorry about that. Woo, relief to everybody. I apologize and go right on.
Thank you, Madam MC. I breathe much easier now. So the next slide shows the first example we're going to talk about. I wonder if you recognize that plant that's on the picture at the left. Perhaps not, but you do recognize when you get to the grocery store, you recognize this, I'm sure. Cardamom. What I have learned about cardamom is that the country of Guatemala is the largest producer of this spice in the world. And 70% of the cardamom in Guatemala is grown by just 300,000 farmers in the highlands, in the cloud forests, who farm maybe 10 acres each. Now, cardamom is a pretty fragile commodity. The harvest can rot if it's not begun processing within about 12 hours. These are small farmers, though, and they don't have a lot of clout in the marketplace. So McCormick Company has partnered with Heifer International to provide some relief and some much needed technical assistance to these cardamom farmers. And as you see at the right on your screen, that one of the things that this particular partnership is going to do is provide dryers that are energy efficient to dry the seed pods to eventually be made into finished cardamom. That will help the environment because people will need to use less wood to dry the cardamom, thus ending deforestation. And the other beautiful thing about this project is that this helps people who are trying very hard to stay on their land in Guatemala and support their families to do that, to stay right there. Now there's a short video from Heifer International to show how hunger and poverty, the ending of hunger and poverty, starts with Heifer International. Cindy, the sound didn't come through.
Food and income for education, medicine, and more, all while caring for the earth. At Heifer International, we help small-scale farmers achieve living incomes through economic development and private sector partnerships. We empower communities by creating women's groups, farmers associations, and cooperatives that strengthen social support networks. And we teach sustainable, earth-friendly agriculture that minimizes environmental impact and reduces the carbon footprint around the world and right here at home. Heifer International. Learn more at heifer.org.
The next slide shows two more of Global Impact's partner charities and a little bit about the work they do. Oxfam America works with small-scale farmers to, again, help them with practices that right there where they are will help mitigate environmental disaster, because let's face it, environmental protection goes all the way from the largest corporations to the smallest subsistence farmers. And Mercy Corps is at work around the world in many countries with demonstration projects that they will then scale up once they see how effective those projects are. In the next slide, let's go on to mental wellness. Perhaps you know the name UNICEF because it has been in existence since the Second World War. UNICEF is all about protecting children, wherever they come from, wherever they're going, how they got there, and who they are personally. UNICEF believes that children come first. What happens when children don't come first? Well, let me share with you a few things from UNICEF's website. Children can be forced into child labor, early marriage, exposed to smuggling or human trafficking, put at risk of violence or exploitation. And of course, if children are on the move because of war or natural disaster or some other upheaval, how do they get an education? How do they get appropriate medical care? How are they allowed to become children? In the next slide, you'll see that way back in the 1950s, the international community voted a Declaration of the Rights of the Child that attempted to lay out what children should have in place for a healthy childhood. Equality, special protection, a name and a nationality. These are people. Adequate nutrition, housing, and medical services, special attention if they happen to have some kind of handicap, understanding, love, recreational activities, free education, relief, protection, and finally brought up in a warm and loving atmosphere. And what might that look like? Well, speaking of mental wellness, this is what looks like a lunchbox, right? But this is an art in the box kit. And UNICEF provides these when children are fleeing war or natural disaster and have come to refugee camps. So children will find in their box stickers. They'll find a pad of paper, and they'll find crayons and markers. Now, how would you feel as a child if you were handed an art box? You'd feel loved, cared for, and allowed to play. So UNICEF believes that mental wellness is one of the fundamental rights of a child. In the next slide, you'll see UNICEF's short video that describes some of the work they have done in the past and how transformative it's been for people around the world. This year's theme is the face of change. And the real face of change, friends, is you. Next slide, please, Cindy. Because you, federal workers, choosing to give your gifts through the CFC make this kind of transformation possible. One more short video from Global Impact, then I'll come back with a few more words.
$1.90. Imagine living off that each day. An estimated 689 million people around the world survive off that or less each day. These people are struggling just to meet their basic needs like safe housing, clean water, and healthcare. That's why Global Impact connects you with more than 100 highly trusted international charities who are changing the world, like bringing clean water to rural communities or increasing access to critical healthcare. responding in the wake of disasters, building schools to educate youth, fostering entrepreneurs through training and financial support, and so much more. Giving to international causes is vital and far-reaching, reducing poverty, boosting global economies, and building a better world. Talk about impact. Won't you join us? You can give to global causes that matter most to you and make a difference through your workplace giving campaign. Giving through your workplace is easy and benefits the charities you support. With payroll deduction, you can set aside a little each pay period, empowering you to give more. The best part? Charities receive your gifts as unrestricted funds. This means they can direct donations to where the need is greatest. It's that easy. They can also rely on your contributions coming in throughout the year, helping in long-term planning and programming. Join with your colleagues to give through the workplace, and together, we can have a collective impact around the world. So what are you waiting for? Change the world. Give global. Find out more information at charity.org/give.
Thank you so much for caring. Thank you for being the face of change through your CFC.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and I appreciate those videos. And I was actually watching them earlier, and I have to just say, personally, for the UNICEF video, I love seeing stories or hearing stories about coming to full circle, you know, where help is needed. Everyone at some point in our life needs help, right? I mean, no matter where we are in this world, ourselves, our neighbors, our global economy, somewhere we need help. And being able to have that help with CFC partnering charities and be able to give back and support really brings the CFCs to full circle. So I love that video, and thank you for sharing that message. Before we move on to Michael with Project Seawolf, do we have any questions for Sandy and Global Impact? All right, well, we'll have a chance later on if you have questions to answer later on as well. But now I'd like to go ahead and introduce Michael. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm working on battery, and this is really interesting. First time I've ever done something like this. I'm in the process of moving a vessel for our organization between Orlando, Florida, back home to Washington State, just north of Seattle. And right now I'm sitting somewhere in Montana. It's been an interesting trip so far. I got caught in both the hurricane down in Kentucky on the way down, and then the major windstorm in Kansas yesterday. So this has been exciting. I think my battery will last, but let's give it a shot. Let's start with the presentation. So a couple of quick things before we get started. I am an ex-federal employee as well. I worked for 20 years for the Department of Defense, and then as well as FEMA as a civilian. So I've been part of the CFC. Personally, I've been giving for over a couple of decades. So I definitely see the perspective from within federal government. And at the same time now, at this course in my life, I'm retired, but I'm actually going back to school to get a teaching degree because I'm really interested in environmental education. So it's been an interesting journey, but with that, let me introduce Project Seawolf to you. The one thing I'll say on the offset, and you can go ahead to the next slide, is that we are 100% volunteer. We have a very minimal overhead. So 98% of all donations that come into our organization, and we are very, very lean, very, very grassroots and tactical in a sense. 98% of all donations go directly into our operations. So none of our volunteers have salaries. There's no money spent on anything beside maybe a PO box and some internet connection. And that's one thing that sets us different. We are based in the Northwest, and we focus on wildlife populations in British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. But the work that we do with ecosystem management and conservation and stewardship impacts right across the country and even into Canada. So we have a pretty significant footprint for a small all-volunteer organization. We started back in 1997, and some of our major projects, and this kind of really shows the impact of what a few passionate people aboard and a bunch of volunteers who really care about conservation can do, is we were the group that basically promulgated the federal endangered species listing for the southern resident orca killer whale population here in the Pacific Northwest. For those who don't know, this is a very, very highly endangered population. There's only 73 animals left, and they're biologically, genetically distinct. They're completely separate from any other ecotype of orca whale. And they have been part of the fabric of Northwest identity for eons, centuries, but now they're dying. And so we've been focused on trying to put that particular population under a microscope for the world to learn about. And some of our major initiatives and some of the big things that we've actually managed to do is we've had 3 major documentaries that we co-produced. I did a lot of the underwater videography. And the one thing that you will find out about our group is that we're very tactical. We're the people that get out in the field. We've got the experts, biologists, the divers, the field personnel, but then we also have a heavy education component where we're working with our next generation, because we firmly believe that corrupting kids to become stewards of the environment is an excellent way to move forward. But anyway, so we were involved in the ESA listing. We've got the Washington State listing. We singularly made that one happen. The larger federal listing took 6 years, and it involved a large consortium that we put together. And then the documentary films that we worked on, and probably one of the things that people in the Northwest that know the most about is there was a young killer whale in 2003 that was orphaned, that was discovered in Puget Sound. She was lost, but essentially we were the ones that got the government forces together, got donors on board, and provided the vessels and the skills and resources among our board members and our contacts to rescue her, rehabilitate her, and take her back up to her home waters in British Columbia. And now she's a regular wild orca and the mother of 2 calves. So that was probably one of our biggest success stories. So with that, let me get to some pictures. Let's go ahead to the next frame, and I'll talk about some of our individual initiatives. So our big thing is our hovercraft boat patrols. We've got vessels, and you know, including the one I'm towing right now back to the coast, that are specialized, that even federal government, National Marine Fisheries Service, doesn't have. We're the only organization in the world, as we can understand, that uses hovercraft. We've got 2 hovercraft that we use, and the beauty of using those with whales is that they have no props. They can get right up beside a whale. They can get into muddy, flat areas where strandings occur, and we take different groups out there. It's not just our groups, but we team and provide our resources, because like I said, we're kind of 100% volunteer. We team up with other groups, including in the National Marine Fisheries Service. We've provided platforms for them as well, specialized craft that they don't have access to. And so our hovercraft and boat patrols are the main tactical operation that we actually get engaged in. So we are a quick response organization. Let's go to the next frame. The other thing that we recognize is that you can't all be action. You can't always be out in the field and so forth. There's got to be a second element to your organization. And one of our second element is working with students to teach about environmental impacts that affect the entire coastline. So our salmon-friendly lawn sign campaign is one of our campaigns that we produce for non-point pollution education. Essentially, we circulate those little signs that you see. They're 6-inch by 9-inch polytag boards for free to anybody who wants one, and anybody who commits to not using toxic herbicides, pesticides, or chemicals on their lawn. Now, this campaign has been amazing. We require people to send us a self-addressed stamped envelope. So what we want to do is try to encourage people to put a little bit of effort into getting these free signs, because that, in our mind, indicates that they will actually put it up on their lawn for a year. And we find that each of them, we've done a study, we've circulated over 25,000 of these signs by direct request over the last 14 years. So it's had a remarkable campaign. We've done some surveys. We've indicated, we found out that each of these signs placed generate on average 2.6, how do you do 0.6, conversations among neighbors about the impact of non-point pollution. So that's been a highly successful organization. Again, these signs are free as long as people send us an envelope. So it was a strategy that we developed, and it's been exported. We've had a lot of groups across the country reach back to us for our artwork and some of our strategy for this campaign. We've provided them free artwork. The Hudson River Keepers in New York, the Surf Keepers in Hawaii, Trout Unlimited in the Midwest, they've all contacted us and asked us for our artwork, and we've successfully exported that campaign. So let's go to the next slide. Again, the orca whale rescue stranding response. That's Springer, that's the baby calf that we rescued back in 2003. Again, we've got veterinarians from different animal husbandry organizations. We are one of the groups that work with partners regardless of what side of the fence they're on. So we've got specialists from SeaWorld who work with wild population. We've got environmental conservation groups who are anti-captivity. So we team everybody together as long as we've got a team that can actually affect a rescue. So this is all the resources that we provide. And again, because we put a lot of effort to this and our board members are putting a lot of our own resources into this organization, we have equipment like underwater cameras. That sling is ours as well. The marine vessels that we've tapped into are huge. They carried that whale back from Washington State all the way back to British Columbia. So this is another thing we put together. We coordinate and then actually provide the experts to create these plans, all for free. I have to basically emphasize that because, like I said, all of the donations we get go directly into our campaigns. Let's go to the next slide. So this is probably one of the biggest things that we do to use education as a tool. Every year, we provide tree planting opportunities for about 200 to 500 kids in the Northwest, where we get the trees, we source the trees, we pay for the trees. And in fact, let me throw this out about how CFC contributions can help. For every $2 we get through the CFC, that plants one native tree sapling every spring. And it also gets youth involved in getting their hands dirty and teaches them environmental and civic stewardship. So we've been doing this now for about 11 years. Over the course of the program, we've anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 trees a year, even during the COVID closures. We've worked with student groups and we've got schools receiving these trees, handing them out to their students, or we've used different civic groups like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts as well to plant trees. So we have planted in excess of about 27,000 trees in the 11 years that this campaign has been going on. And again, this is all basically funded by donations. So let's go to the next one. And again, our big mainstay, our tactical, is the Marine Wildlife Stranding Response Patrols. So we're the group that has the resources that get out there immediately when there's a report of a stranding. And then we coordinate activities with both the federal government, with National Marine Fisheries Service, and other volunteer groups in order to respond to that stranding. In some cases, we have to do necropsies, which means taking tissue samples and determining what the cause of death has been for a whale or marine mammal like a pinniped, sea lion, or a seal. And in other cases, we're actually able to affect getting those whales back into the water and getting them back living normal lives. So that's a big part of our tactical operations, but we've also got the educational component with the students, which we believe is the next generation of stewards. So let's go ahead to the next slide. Well, that wraps it up. At this point, because I'm running out of battery and because I'm parked on some rancher's property, which I probably need to get off and be a little bit more tactical about myself, I am going to end the presentation unless there are any questions at this point. Thank you.
Michael, thank you
Yes.
so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the risk on that farmer's property. I hope that you'll be safe and safe travels back home. So you have about 12 more hours to go, probably.
I've got about 700 miles. So yeah, that should be about right.
Well, good luck. Safe travels to you. Real quick before you move on, do you have volunteer opportunities? As anyone knows for CFC, is if a charity has asked for volunteer opportunities or volunteers for our federal employees out there, you can find a little hand icon next to their name, either in the charity listing or online. Does Project Seawolf have any volunteer opportunities for our federal employees out there?
We do, and they are incredible, and they've been used already. So in the Northwest, if any of the volunteers from the CFC or through the CFC are interested in coming out on our boats, we've actually incorporated 3 volunteers in the past who've reached out on a stranding patrol. So we essentially have them work with us in moving cameras around, documenting things while we do all the tactical operation. But yes, absolutely. There's also easier work if people don't want to come out on the water with us, in helping chaperone some of these tree plantings with students. But of course, you need to be physically in the Pacific Northwest in order to get involved in some of these active volunteer opportunities. But certainly, since we don't do any real active fundraising and marketing, we definitely could use people spreading the word about our organization as well. And again, I'll emphasize the fact that one of the things that sets us apart is that it's 100% volunteer, and 98% plus actually go to directly into our operations. So reach out to us if you want to volunteer. Yes.
Thank you. And actually, if you want to volunteer, you can reach out to them, but please make sure you fill out your CFC pledge form, either online or also your paper form, to dedicate those hours and make sure that your agency gets credit. Thank you so much, Michael. Drive careful.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to see, we'd like to invite Susan Ryan with EarthShare to visit us, and she's actually online. So if you can share some information about your organization. Susan,
Nice.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Cindy. All right. I think I have the presentation ready today. Awesome. All right. Hello, and thank you on behalf of EarthShare and all charities in the combined federal campaign for taking the time out of your day to support the campaign. My name is Susan Ryan, and I'm the Outreach Associate for the Campaigns Department at EarthShare. EarthShare is America's oldest and largest coalition of environmental and conservation organizations. For more than 30 years, we've connected the power of people, workplaces, and nonprofits seeking to build a thriving, healthy future. And to date, our work has driven more than $350 million to urgent environmental issues. Next slide, please. Our nonprofit partners include World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy, and National Audubon Society, along with hundreds of other environmental nonprofits. EarthShare partner organizations are tackling issues that affect each of us, from clean air and water to our food systems, to climate change, to the outdoor places where we play, and so much more. Because this work has a direct impact on your life and your community, you may be wondering how you can most effectively help. Everything our partner nonprofits do, protecting air, land, water, and wildlife, growing grassroots and community commitment, and educating policymakers and the public, requires financial resources. Next slide, please. The most critical contribution you can make is your donation. That need is even greater at a time when so many nonprofits are struggling to continue their vital work due to the inability to rally and convene supporters in person based on pandemic restrictions. And that's where the CFC comes in. There is no easier way for you to help make a powerful difference all year long. And CFC dollars are more important than ever to help combat climate change. Natural disasters are occurring nearly 5 times as often as they were in the 1970s. From 1980 to 1989, within those 9 years, there were 29 natural disaster events costing over $1 billion. In comparison, in 2020 alone, the United States experienced 22 of these events. Just in the last 3 years, the US has experienced $243 billion in losses. The increase of natural disasters is linked to climate change, which is accelerating due to human activities. And it is not just storms increasing due to climate change, but droughts, wildfires, and an increase in diseases too. According to the CDC, 6 out of every 10 infectious diseases are zoonotic diseases. This means that they've been transmitted from animals to humans. Different influenzas like avian or swine flu, coronaviruses like SARS, MERS, and COVID-19, Zika, malaria, and Lyme disease are all examples. The link between diseases and climate change can be seen through the warming of our planet. Warmer weather for greater stretches of the year creates an environment where potentially harmful disease-carrying insects and germs thrive. Also, as temperatures rise, all creatures, large and small, will seek cooler weather by heading towards the poles. So this creates a natural funnel where humans will interact with animals we would have otherwise never been around. These increased interactions then increase the probability of diseases being spread from animals to humans. Now, infectious diseases are an extremely complex issue, and climate change is by no means the only variable, but is absolutely a contributing factor in numerous ways. And that's where the CFC comes in. Donating through payroll contribution is one of the easiest and most convenient ways to support causes you care about. It also delivers a sustainable, reliable source of support to help organizations that are improving our world. So 2 of the benefits of giving through the combined federal campaign are, first, charities are able to budget. Our groups know the totals of your donation before you've even paid it out for the year, and CFC dollars are a constant revenue stream for them. Second, all CFC dollars are unrestricted. Having unrestricted funds allows groups to use funds where it is most needed, and unrestricted funds are often used for emergencies, like natural disasters and the COVID response. Just this past year, your 2020 campaign dollars have helped Earthshare partners support wildfire victims in the West and help with access to clean water in areas impacted by other natural disasters and the pandemic. Without CFC donations, none of us would be able to help those in need on the forefront of climate change. Next slide, please. So pledging the same amount as the cost of a streaming service or your daily espresso can achieve amazing things. For example, $1 per pay period buys 24 trees. Trees help absorb CO2, reduce flooding, and planting trees is one of the most effective ways to combat climate change. $10 per pay period connects 20 homeowners with the resources they need to make their homes energy efficient. Now, considering 2,000 acres of our most productive, versatile, and resilient land is lost every day, $20 per pay period provides resources for the Farms Under Threat program, a multi-year effort to advance cutting-edge solutions for farmland protection. There are also many successes on the climate change front that campaign donations have helped with. Here are just a few. The first is that food shortage is a byproduct of climate change. And in response, across the globe, you have put more than 121 million acres of farms and forest land under sustainable management and trained more than 1.3 million people in sustainable land management practices. Additionally, our charity partners were able to prevent 38 billion pounds of CO2 from entering the atmosphere. And now, since I have a little bit more time, I also wanted to share some of the examples of what our partner nonprofits have been working on related to COVID-19. There often doesn't appear to be a connection between environmental causes and the pandemic, but here are some examples of the important work your CFC dollars have helped Earthshare partners accomplish during this time. So, due to a decrease in patrolling, animal poaching has seen an increase in Africa. Our partners created virtual volunteer opportunities for the community to still monitor and protect species in need. Our partners provided access to clean water for sanitization in areas like Flint, Michigan, and Navajo reservations. Many areas still do not have access to clean water to just simply wash their hands, and often these communities are the ones hit hardest by the virus. Outdoor green spaces. We all yearn for those moments outside. Our partners worked on creating new green spaces, protecting our beaches, and maintaining our national parks. Farm bankruptcies were already high before COVID-19 hit, but got even worse with disrupted supply chains. One of our partner groups sent small grants totaling $1 million to small and mid-sized farms across the country to help them until normal operations resumed. Many farmers were not able to sell at farmers markets and restaurants, so our partners helped provide farmers deliver their produce to communities in need and help maintain farmers markets. Many recycling centers had to close, and our partners helped maintain recycling centers through virtual safety webinars, making sure that our recyclables were in fact recycled and not thrown into a landfill. So these are all powerful examples of your CFC dollars at work. Next slide, please. So we know you may also want the option of supporting a broad range of environmental causes. And with Earthshare's one gift option, you can make a general gift to Earthshare to support all our partners. Whether you want to invest in our partners' work around the world, your favorite organization, or a combination of causes, the choice is truly yours. It's never been more important for each of us who share this planet to consider sharing the responsibility. There's no more effective way to do that than by giving what you can to the causes and organizations that act as champions for issues that affect each and every one of us. And if Earthshare isn't your passion, that's the great thing about the combined federal campaign. There are thousands of charities with wonderful, important missions that need your help. Lastly, if you can't give, volunteer. Many nonprofits are offering virtual and in-person opportunities and desperately need your help. Next slide, please. So on behalf of everyone at EarthShare, as well as all participating nonprofits in the campaign, we truly appreciate your time today. The CFC represents so many deserving causes, and I'm sure you can find one or more that speaks to your heart and values and hope for the future. Every dollar you pledge today truly makes a difference. Together, we're helping protect our planet for future generations of all people. So thank you again for your generosity and time. It makes a world of difference. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Susan, so much for what you do. I've worked with EarthShare before, but this is the first time actually I've heard such a robust presentation. So thank you. I know so much more about EarthShare. You guys really do some amazing things out there across the country. So thank you. Are there any questions for Susan? For any of the charities that are on, you can also add your contact information in the chat. So if anyone has any direct questions, they can contact you directly as well. So please feel free to do that. Our next presenter today is Christopher Kennedy, and he is with the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. Christopher?
Hello, yes. Good morning, good afternoon. It's so great to be here. And Cindy, I think you have a video of mine that I guess you can just play first, as it's a little bit of a pictorial introduction to our working mission, and then I'll jump right back on. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention there. That hopefully gave you a what does it actually mean to bring the gift of hope through Catholic Near East Welfare Association. So first, just by way of introduction, CNEWA, as we pronounce it, was founded in 1926 to minister to the poor at that time in Eastern Europe, what was then the Soviet Union in the aftermath of World War I. We've since expanded a few years after that to the Middle East, Northeast Africa, India as well. And we serve, I think it's very important to note, the institutions that we help to care for and minister with, schools, hospitals, clinics, and things like that, they serve anybody in need. Although we have Catholic in our name, what that means, as one sister puts it so well, we help people because we're Catholic. Our organization is Catholic, not because they are. So the partners we work with serve everybody, regardless of need. And it's been an extraordinary time for all of us, and a particularly difficult one for people in the Middle East and Northeast Africa and elsewhere where we work. For families living in poverty or refugees fleeing terror, or the elderly with no one to care for them, the hardships that these people have faced have been made even worse by COVID-19, and they're exacerbated by violence and economic setbacks as well as other crises. So one of the things to bring it in sort of this in line with the topic of the week of mental health, which is so crucial. One of the things that we provided, not only in response to the pandemic, but something that we've been expanding throughout the areas we serve, is psychosocial support. So in addition to providing things like food packages and masks and hand sanitizer to families who have nothing, we've also, particularly in Africa and Eastern Europe and India, we've launched a number of programs through the local churches there to provide mental health counseling, psychosocial support. Unfortunately, what we've learned and what we've seen is that in a lot of these areas, the stigma against mental health and mental challenges is great, and it's hard to overcome. So we're doing it. We're sort of introducing the idea very slowly, very carefully, we're working quite a bit with children, and in the Middle East as well. What we've learned over the last few years, of course, is that refugees, children who have spent the vast majority, if not their whole lives, on the run or on the move, they face significant trauma, and that they need a lot of help in order to just become the children that they really are. I saw this sort of firsthand when I was in Lebanon in 2017. We went to a school called the Fratelli School, run by a Catholic religious order, about an hour south of Beirut. And the kids there, they were refugees from Syria primarily, and they were there to not only get an education, but also just to be around other kids who had the same circumstances they did, who had, as I mentioned, been on the run from violence or political instability for years. And so what the school did is they brought in a social worker with our help. And a lot of people in and around the school, the social worker, what's that? What would they do? Do we really need one? What is this? And so there was a lot of education involved on our part with our office in Beirut, working with the school to try to do some education to parents and families in the community, saying, these are some of the things that your own children and perhaps you yourselves are going through. And a social worker and bringing in some counseling services can really help to address some of the challenges that you and your families face. So that's one of the things that we've really been focusing on and expanding. In addition, in India, the Catholic Church and the religious sisters, they run some of the only schools for people with mental and physical disabilities. Again, in many parts of that country, there's a great stigma around mental and physical disabilities, and in most cases, sadly, children are in that circumstance are not able to get an education. But the Catholic Sisters have seen, as sort of part of our belief in in the whole person, being the idea that every single person is to be valued and loved and treasured, no matter what your circumstances are. The Catholic Sisters started educating people with different mental challenges, with physical challenges, people who are deaf or blind, and they're still to this day, they're in many cases the only ones doing this vital work and caring for people in need. And then I'll talk just to wrap up to talk about the other topic, the environment. I'll talk about one project that I think is pretty cool in a country called Eritrea in the Horn of Africa. We support an agricultural school there that is run by another religious order. And since Eritrea, the land is arid and desolate, it's not quite a desert, but it's close. They've brought in some farming techniques from the Middle East. And so what I've done is if you look at this school, I've looked at this school on Google Maps, and you see it's like this little green oasis in the middle of the desert. One of some of the farming techniques that we've been able to bring in and teach people how to sustainably farm their land. So that's a little bit about us. Again, to echo the other presenters, I'm really, really grateful for your participation in the Combined Federal Campaign. The need is great, not only in your own communities, but across the country, across the world even. So I'm grateful for you taking the time, and I thank you so much for tuning in.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Chris? All right, so I just again want to thank you all for being here today. I know the holidays are right around the corner next week, so I know that we're all really, really busy, and just thank you so much for spending time with us today and our charities and listening to the messages. Environmental protection and mental health and mental wellness are two issues and topics that are just so needed and valuable across the country. And, being able to support charities like the ones that we have today and the charities that they support through the Combined Federal Campaign really makes a huge impact in our community. Please don't forget to volunteer, as we talked about earlier. If you have a need to volunteer or a desire to volunteer, we always want to encourage that. And we really thank you all for being here today. If there's no other questions, we will go ahead and end today's session, and I will stop recording. But thank you again for being here. Happy holidays, and I hope you have an amazing and safe weekend.
Thank you so much. It was so great.